Here we got our little theme. Hello and welcome to the pilot episode of 5 on the 5, where five guys talk about a game under $5. I'm your host, the Robo So Nice They Named Him Twice, Double Robo, here, aka Sean, and joining me today first we've got the noble night train himself, Jordan.
Hello and welcome everybody, good to be here.
And we have troll extraordinaire and the internet's own headhunter, Skylar.
Greetings.
Also with us we have wannabe Gaben and future indie game developer, Josh.
Hi there, guys. Danger Risk here. Nice to meet you.
And brother to us all, and real actual brother to Jordan, we have Evan.
Hey guys, what's up?
Okay, so this week we played the 2005 PC game Fear. What are your thoughts about it, really quick? Let's just go around the table. Did you play Fear when it came out? I guess that's a question I want to start with. I did. I played Fear for about 10 minutes when I came out. I'm going to talk about that for a little bit more. Talk about that in a little bit more.
Have you played it?
In 2005, I played it when it came out for about 5 minutes.
Nice.
But I did not play Fear when it came out. I would not qualify myself as playing it when it came out.
I didn't
Evan,
play it
did
all.
you play Fear?
No, I did not at all. I didn't start it until we decided to do a podcast about it.
Okay, Josh, had you played Fear yet?
I did. In fact, I played Fear 1 when it came out and Fear 2 when it came out, though I spent a lot more time in the multiplayer than I did the single player. Having beaten it once, I just moved on.
Okay, we should talk about the multiplayer, because the Steam version does not have multiplayer. So we should...
That's right.
Remind me to talk about that
servers
sometime
down
in the
in
show.
about 2010. They stopped support for it.
Yeah,
So
remind me to talk about that, because I read about the multiplayer, but obviously I couldn't play it, so remind me to talk about that later in the show. Jordan, did you play Fear when it came out?
Definitely not. I'm not a first-person shooter guy or a scary game guy, so something named Fear with guns was not something I would have played at the time.
His most logged game is Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Hell, yeah, well...
I am also his guild leader in it, so, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's be honest, we all play that game too much.
Seriously. Seriously.
Next time on 5 on the 5, how you can be a level 80 Candyman.
Awesome. And Skylar, you kept trying to jump in, so now finally tell us, did you play Fear when it first came out?
So I hate you, first of all, and second of all, yes. Well, no, not when it first came out, but I played it like 4 years ago, through, and I loved it, and it's one of my favorite games I've ever played. One of my favorite FPSs, I guess.
Okay. All right. So Jordan, stop highlighting in the Google Doc. I swear to God.
So I think it's important that we discuss other events that happened in 2005 to set the scene for the people who are watching to understand.
Okay.
I'm just a list of people.
Set the scene.
Hurricane Katrina.
Okay.
I think that's a good start. Pope John Paul II died.
Okay. All
4
right.
million people traveled to the Vatican to mourn him. I assume the Fear developers were in those people. That's where they got the inspiration for Alma. Lance Armstrong, his 7th straight Tour de France.
Government redacted.
Right.
Thank you. Danger Risk will be here all week.
Yes.
You know what?
It's
I'm gonna take over
redacted just like the Fear team is redacted. So
That's right. I'm going to take over from Skylar, and I'm going to set the mood with this. In the year 2005, while hurricanes raged across the southern states,
Josh
while the
still
Pope
didn't have his
himself
first
lay
kiss.
dying, one team of developers thought, you know what we need? Creepy little girls. And Fear was born.
Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire came out on film. I think that's an important thing.
Can we also talk about the most important part? The fact that Montana didn't have a career yet?
That's true. But Hillary Duff did, so it's just as bad.
But you know what they say, Skylar? Gentlemen prefer blondes.
Okay. Yes, and we are proper gentlemen here.
always. Okay. So that sets the stage then for my little plot synopsis. So here is the plot of Fear. You play as a nameless character in the Fear group, which stands for something. First Encounter Assault Recon. This unit is meant to deal with supernatural threats, and it's called Fear because someone has an ironic and sadistic sense of humor. You're tasked with hunting down Paxton Fentel, whatever it is, who has a taste for human flesh and a flair for the dramatic, and always has blood around his mouth. And so you keep experiencing weird hallucinations and weird phenomena that take you out of control of the environment. You keep seeing a little girl named Alma. You find out that Fennel is the son of Alma, and they have supernatural powers, and that she's being held in a facility, and he's trying to free her. Basically, the company that's holding her is trying to stop you because they're trying to cover it up. So you have to fight super soldiers and guards and people in bulletproof vests whose necks go all rubberneck when you shoot them. And
don't forget the original monster in the late game.
Yeah, there's some supernatural monsters and stuff. I didn't get that far into it. We can talk more about that later. It turns out that the player is actually another son of Alma. Wow, surprise, surprise.
Spoilers.
And considering that you have slow-mo powers like 2 minutes into the game, I figured you were supernatural in some way, but that's beside the point.
You could drink a lot of Red Bull and have the same effect. I'm calling shenanigans on that.
He could just be an avid cocaine user. I don't know.
Okay.
And so it turns
But
out
now
that
we
she gets...
spoiled the plot completely.
Well,
Yeah.
so the show is going to include spoilers. That's just part of the show.
Let's be honest here. It's about the journey of the game, not the destination. Because if it was, we wouldn't be playing FPSs.
Yeah,
Valid.
basically.
Fair.
I call that my Call of Duty rule. And she gets released, and then you're airlifted from the facility, setting up for Fear 2. So that was just my quick synopsis. I didn't play through the entire thing. I got probably 10 hours in or so, and didn't finish. So
But you have played
do
through
we...
it.
Skylar, do you have anything
It's a
to...
decently long game. Note out there to listeners who are wondering, for $5, am I getting my money's worth? The single-player campaign will take you between probably 15 and 20 hours to beat, depending on what difficulty setting you're on. Again, if you're on easy, you'll probably blow through it in about 6 to 8.
Yeah, well then I must not have played it
started
10
out
hours
on,
because I was on medium for probably the first 5 hours, and then I switched to easy so I could get through more of it before the show.
Yeah, the game is relatively difficult too. So.
And also in
Yeah.
Steam you get the 2 expansions, which I did not get a chance to play through. So has anyone played those?
I've heard that they're bad, but I haven't played them. Well, scratch that. I heard one of them was bad.
Okay.
I played through Extraction Point, which is one of the 2.
That's the one I heard was
Which
good.
you play as the Point Man, who I'll get to in a second, as he, fights his way out to get extracted. My God, naming the title. And it's basically you're holed up in a church and you fight a bunch of monsters, and it's decent, but it's not nearly. It feels tacked on at best.
Okay. Well, and this was, 2005. Other big games at the time, this was pre DLC as a big thing.
It definitely was.
This was before the days of Mass Effect DLC and Borderlands and like these games that had like large sprawling DLC things that were a whole different story with new voice acting and new characters, and that was still a little far away at this point, I feel like.
Yeah, no,
That is very true.
Yep. So DLC was pretty rare, and it was like when they released DLC, it was like a big deal. It was like more of an expansion pack than like one map.
Right. Yeah, it was.
So
it was much more.
This was like
sort
one of
of
the early games.
Right. It was like the Diablo 2 and then Lords of Destruction type deal.
That's
where it
right.
was like,
or StarCraft and Brood War.
Yeah.
Right, where it was like not that DLC didn't exist, but it was just it was in a different framework. And it wasn't expected. I don't think DLC now is part of the budget,
absolutely.
where like when you budget for a game, you maybe have $100 million plus $20 million for additional DLC. Like it's in the budget for the game, as opposed to before it was like, oh, this game did really well. We have a lot of money. Maybe we should make DLC.
Quick, let's throw something together really, really fast. And
Right,
beat more
exactly. Whereas now you have whole teams dedicated to DLC that are creating the first DLC while the other team
Not
is
to
working
mention
on the rest of the game.
you've got often the actual team working on DLC now, which is that whole fiasco with Day One DLC.
Ugh.
Right, yeah. Day one DLC,
Yeah.
or like, the Mechromancer for Borderlands 2 was ready 2 weeks after the game came out and was obviously in development before that.
Or with Street Fighter Cross Tekken, they put the DLC characters on the disc before it was released.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then when
that's
it
a
was
whole different
released,
thing,
they
yeah.
unlocked them, and people were pissed about that because they were done being developed long before the game even came out.
Yeah.
I'm going to
so-
take us back to Fear, though, for a
I was
minute.
going to say,
do.
that's
You
guys
probably a
don't mind.
discussion for another day.
No, absolutely.
So I'm going to bring up my first point on Fear, and this is kind of an FPS thing in general. We've seen in a lot of games you've got the silent protagonist, the Gordon Freemans and the point men and whoever else.
Link
Chose.
is a notable one.
Yeah, Link is a huge example of
Pretty
that.
much any character where they let you name them in any game, so that applies to a lot of RPGs as well.
I don't know,
And
Final
a
Fantasy
lot of-
X.
Pokemon.
Okay,
Pokemon.
Final Fantasy X. But if we take a look at Pokemon, the Persona series, the early Final Fantasies, most of the Tales of games, you can name your character pretty much, what you want. And
I'm
one
just
of the
sad they
things
don't put in
about
voice
games-
files for Ass Clown so that my Pokemon
Well-
character can't talk.
I'm about to get to that. One of the big things that's a huge consideration when you let your character name, you let your player name your character. If there's voice acting in your game, is how do you refer to that character? Now, you see a lot of it in JRPGs. They get around it because of the whole, on the surname system and the how you get around kind of the. Oh God, what's the word? The honorable titles, San, Sama, that sort of thing. A great example being the Persona games. They refer to you as Senpai most of the game, and they get around that. The Mass Effect games get around referring to you by just calling you Shepard, no matter, if your first name is Macho Man Randy Savage Shepard, and you're, oh yeah, snap into a Reaper, doesn't matter.
Snap into a Reaper.
I'm putting that on a shirt when we get big, I'm telling you.
Good.
Macho Man Randy Savage in the N7 armor just driving a Reaper into the ground.
do
But
it.
there are lots of ways around it. In Half-Life, for instance, they never refer to Gordon Freeman by anything other than Gordon Freeman, or you could get around with Hey You. If you're going to refer
Hey,
to your
listen.
character's name, and I'm going to say this in the kindest way I can think of, don't give your character a blitheringly stupid name. And
Like-
the Man
Yeah.
is just such a dumb name for a character for people to refer to. I mean, that would be like if you got a new guy in accounting, right, at wherever you work, and you go, "Hey, have you seen The Accountant?"
It was like
Coming
a glaring
this summer
case
from
of,
Michael Bay.
Like the
The
whole time I
Accountant.
was playing, all I could think of was that like nobody remembers my character's name. You know what I mean? Like the whole time they couldn't like awkwardly step around it. Like when you're talking to somebody like you just met and you forget their name. So it's like, oh, you met our new point man guy here, or it's like, hey, hand that guy you're talking to, it was like the whole time I'm like, okay, so I actually have a name, just nobody remembers what it is. That's kind of the impression I had through the whole
That's a
time.
great way to
I feel like
reframe
the
it.
point man standing around in like the office lounge, being that one guy who nobody shows up to his birthday party.
Oh.
He's kind of crying in the cake. And
Sky-
everybody's like, "Oh, it was that one guy's birthday." Yeah.
Skylar, can we get a first-person perspective on what it's like to be that guy?
Well, I mean, it's difficult sometimes, but like when your birthday party just involves like rolling
Justin
around naked in piles of chinchillas, live chinchillas, it's not a big deal.
I feel like PETA would have issues with that.
I was gonna say that
But-
took a turn for the worst really
No,
fast.
they're into it. It's cool. We talk.
I have nothing to say to that, but
I have something to
this
say
whole
to
thing
it.
becomes completely jarring late game because in the beginning, they're like, "Oh, what do you think of our new point man?" And assumably you're not there, so you hear it over the radio or whatever. But later on, you get addressed by these characters named like Janikowski or something. It was something Eastern European and instantly forgettable because all the characters in this game are forgettable.
Which Dead
you know,
Space
he's like-
shares
Except
too,
one.
by the way.
Except one, yeah.
Well, okay, except for
talk about
maybe
that.
Alma, but we'll get there. But so he turns to you and he goes, "Point man, I need you to take the point and go in that building." And I'm like, "What?" Like, not only is it you're just ordering me by my name. Do you even know what I do? You're just like, "Well, geez, he's called the point man. We might as well put him on point."
Yeah. It was so funny because like they talk about the whole time, like here you are, like one man against an army of super soldiers. You're like the new guy on the job, and you're just like taking out hordes and hordes of these guys. You like secure 2 whole buildings on your own, and it's like really you're not going to take like the consideration to learn my name after I've literally killed like 400 super soldiers. You know what I mean? I'm like
Well,
one guy with a shotgun running through an abandoned office building while it's being attacked by a ghost, and it's like really that hasn't earned me the right to have my name. You know what I mean? It was-
He could have been like John, the
Yeah.
point man. That would have been fine.
Like the best part is they don't name him for 3 games.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just the point man. Even when you find out, spoiler alert, that he's Paxton Fettle's brother, right? Paxton Fettle doesn't go, "Brother," he goes, Point Man. You know?
Yep.
That's what he was named out of the womb, Josh.
I
Point
mean,
Man Fettle.
I feel like there's a reason Alma was locked up. You know, she gives birth to 2 kids. She looks at one and she goes, "I'm going to name you Paxton Fettle, and you're going to be the Point Man. Now, hopefully, I could have a daughter I could call Queen Asparagus." Like, what was she thinking?
So you're saying that the real enemy of this game is Child Protective Services, who took them away
I
from her.
feel like they did their job. You know?
Maybe.
Seriously? Could you imagine being in college and signing your essays the Point Man?
I would kind of feel awesome about myself, to be honest. Like, if you can sign your essay with anything that has an article in front of it, I feel like you're in good shape.
No, you would, but all official documents like your house's lease would say like Point Man, comma the.
Yeah, that would be kind of an option.
I hadn't even thought of that. Good point.
But when he's, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Okay, well I'm gonna point this show back to
I was
Fear.
gonna say, I think we belabored the point.
I need to get a soundboard with like rim shots and stuff. That'd be great for this show.
Or just like Arnold Schwarzenegger quotes of him yelling.
Get to Moss. Okay.
It's
So-
not a tumor!
Okay, so Jordan, do you want to go through some of the game history stuff, and feel free to jump in, Skylar and Josh, on any of this
No,
stuff.
it's
too.
important that we know. I found one more thing that needs to be pointed out that happened
Okay.
in 2005 that we were
All right,
not aware of.
situate
Yes.
us.
Michael Jackson was found not guilty of child molestation charges.
Oh well, thank God.
Game about a creepy, evil little girl.
Exactly. I thought that was an important thing to bring up.
That's relevant, actually.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
but during development, the trial was still going on, so I assume they took inspiration and said, if this really happened, what would these kids turn out like? And I think
They
that's
probably had
that's
the
what
main character as Michael Jackson, but then when he was found not guilty, they had to change him to something else, and that's
Why he doesn't have a name.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it. Oh, you're right, because they had to get rid of all that voice acting that they recorded.
Right.
I
I
think they
recall.
could have gone with Moonwalker over Point Man. Just saying.
But then the people might have realized the references and got angry.
Oh dear.
All right, Jordan.
so-
Jordan, give us some history stuff about the game.
So this is history actually relating to the game. Just some kind of stuff I found online. So the AI engine, which is something I noticed I thought was pretty impressive for a game that was 7 years old, was really highly received and actually got GameSpot's 2005 Best AI Award. So I thought that was pretty interesting. We can talk about a little bit later. It was heavily influenced by Japanese horror and filmmaking. The
Josh,
lead
the
designers.
filmmaker.
What?
Yeah.
Say?
I was gonna say, Josh, the filmmaker. Do you have anything to add to the Japanese horror piece of it?
Yeah, definitely. The whole Alma design is very, very reminiscent of a lot of Japanese horror.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like the Grudge, the
Grudge,
Ring, those
or
both pull from
Ju-on.
Japanese horror.
Right.
Yeah.
And also
That-
the emphasis on silence is really big in Japanese horror,
Absolutely.
too. And that's huge
Fear's
in
a
this
game with a lot. Fear's a game without a lot of music, in fact. But
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Except for the stupid
But-
Danny Elfman music that comes up when the ginger guy is in the room with you. Did you guys notice that music?
Yes.
I did. I'll let Jordan talk about the music after because he's the music guy. But yeah, the ghosts you see in The Grudge, in the original Ring, you even see it so much in the American version of The Ring, is with the hair over the face and the kind of hair monster is based off a Japanese legend of kind of ghost witch hags called, and this is a long hyphenated word, Yomotsu Shikomi, and it's the idea of that kind of dead woman with the matted wet hair over the face. And if you've ever seen even an ad for Fear, it's just all up in that grill, like, damn, I'm all up in your grill.
I can't think of a better way to describe being up in a grill.
Restating the sentence you just said in a different voice is
I'm
exactly
like
how
a
you
grammarian's
described it.
worst nightmare, son.
I think it's
God.
really funny. Like, I took 20 minutes to figure all this stuff out, and then Josh literally hit on 4 of the 5 other points I was going to make. So that's actually really funny.
That's okay. Keep
So
going.
do you have
keep
any
going.
other points to make?
I was just to say that Josh is pretty much exactly right with the kind of creepy, faceless female ghost thingies. The horror element at its time was widely praised, and multiple reviews said that after they played it for a couple hours, they totally emotionally drained, which is something that I thought was actually not that. I don't know. I didn't think the game was actually that scary. The sound and the music, like you guys said, there was a lot of silence that was definitely deliberate. They tried to tie, sounds and music to certain scenes as opposed to just playing throughout. And then the other kind of interesting tidbit I found is that it was extremely demanding of PCs at the time that it was released. So, playing it now, 7 years later, it probably doesn't feel like that. But apparently it was very required very high-end computers in 2005.
Well,
to
it came
play.
out the year the Xbox 360 came out, so it was set up for pretty advanced hardware already.
Well, and it was also
It was
not
the
on
crisis
consoles when
of
it
its
first
time.
came out. It was PC
Yeah, that's
only,
true.
right?
It got re-released on consoles.
Like later on,
but
yeah.
Just talking about the scariness element that Jordan was
Yeah,
mentioning.
yeah. I want to get into that.
I think this is definitely a game where if you're not immersed in the game, it won't be scary. I feel like it's similar to like Amnesia in that sense, because that's a game where if you're not immersed, you're not going to think it's scary at all. But like if you're immersed in this game really well, then I think it's a very scary game.
That's
Well,
a
so
really
here's
good point.
so Skylar, here's my problem with the scariness. This game was like it was very distinct. It was like it had like shooty, scary bit.
That's true.
Shooty,
It's very
scary
true.
bit. And they were like very specifically split off. So it was like in the shooty bits, it looked like Halo 1. And it was like, oh, these hallways are very similar and you're just shooting enemies and the AI is pretty good and this stuff is happening. It's just a modern shooter. And then it would switch and like the lighting would switch, the tempo would switch, like everything
All the
about the game.
guys would go away too. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't see an enemy for the entire
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
It's
like,
really funny. Just a funny note. My girlfriend was watching me play through a lot of this.
Oh,
and
okay, so drop in the note that you have a girlfriend in the show.
Right.
Yeah.
Scumbag.
Ladies, back off.
Girlfriend on podcast.
Back off,
And,
ladies. He's got a girlfriend
right.
now.
And it was really funny because she was watching me play, and I kind of noted that. She was like, it was like really jittery, and I was like, no, don't worry. There's enemies around. There's not anything scary is going to come around. So my girlfriend started referring to it as the shooty bang bang parts. And whenever there was shooty bang bang, it was okay to watch because nothing scary would happen. And then as soon as the shooty bang banging stopped, then she would like go find something else to do because she knew it was a scary part. So I just wanted to interject.
Yes.
Well, which is
Okay.
kind of good and bad. Like there were definitely parts that got me. I think
Yeah.
the part where you're walking through like the bloody hallway and then you get to the end and the skeleton jumps out of
Oh,
the
that
like
scared the living
blood
crap out
river.
of me.
Yeah, that
Oh,
scared the shit out of
God.
me. Like that really got me. And there were other parts that were scary, but most of the time I found that I was like anticipating a scare when there wasn't really ever one. So there was whole atmospheric sections, especially in the office building, where you were like just going through and it was like creepy atmosphere, creepy, and then nothing. You just get back to
Nothing.
shooting again.
That goes back to the Japanese horror thing, because that's a big
Indeed,
thing in
yeah.
Japanese horror, is that it's really the atmosphere is really important, and it crescendos to a point where there's a large scare, but a lot of it is about the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Which
It is definitely a distinctly Japanese thing. You see it a lot less in Chinese horror and other horror from Asia. Is that really slow-paced, methodical mood building is definitely a staple of Japanese horror.
yeah, definitely.
And that's an
So-
interesting point. It was just something that I definitely noticed. And apparently
So
so did my
about
Well, I
about
think-
the scares part of it, I don't know what it turns into later. There were definitely pieces that scared me during the game. There were parts I was streaming the whole game. So for people who are interested in the podcast, the eventual goal is we have a Twitter account. I think it's 5 on the 5 podcast, twitter.com. But the goal eventually is going to be I'll be streaming my playthroughs. People can watch and then listen to the show after, just in case you don't want to buy the show or you want to see what we're talking about or whatever. But while I was playing through, like, Evan was watching some of it and whatever. Like, there were parts that scared me, but there was also like, I feel like the object collision was weird. So there were sometimes where like a soda can would get stuck under my feet, and I got confused about whether that was supposed to be a scary noise that was supposed to scare me or just like a problem in the engine.
I
We'll get
felt the
to
same
engine
way
problems after,
because
'cause that-
when I was
Wait,
in
Evan,
the
go,
office
Evan.
building, I remember whenever those bodies, there are moments where bodies like fall through the ceiling, and every time I'd like walk by them, I'd step on like one of those tiles that the ceilings are made of, and it would just make me jump because it'd be like, and I'd just freak out because I had no idea what was going on, but it was really nothing at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like that might be somewhat of an engine thing, but this game is very early, and I feel like their like formulaic approach is kind of a precursor to how well integrated like good horror games of today are. And
Yeah.
I don't think that this was one of the first like really well acclaimed like first person-y horror games. And I feel like
So-
that's just because they had their formula down, and even though it was pretty predictable, it was like well executed.
So what were horror games before this? I mean, Resident Evil 1
That's
and
what
2
I'm trying to think.
were
Well,
out before this.
I'm going to chime in there, and I'm going to give the dissenting opinion that I hate to say it, but I don't find Fear very scary. Now, I am a little jaded by modern horror games, but I've been playing horror games since I was,
So yeah, Josh is our horror guy, so go for it.
And the problem is, if you've ever watched an Asian horror film, you know exactly what you're getting into. You're getting
Creepy
not
little
you know
girls.
huge scares. You're getting creepy little girls, and you're getting a lot of. Yeah, I know Skylar loves them creepy little girls, but
Oh, low blow.
They don't have to be creepy.
we're getting.
And there goes my
But,
PG-13 idea for a rating.
Uh,
Okay.
Keep going,
But
keep going.
but in all seriousness, though, the thing is, there's a lot predictable about this game. When you enter a dark segment, no enemies. It's just going to be scary, like Sean was saying, and Jordan was saying. The game's very much split up, and the problem is the second you enter a horror segment, you know everything that's going to happen. When you see somebody walking in slow motion, they're going to walk in slow motion and dissolve into ashes.
Right.
When you walk into a room and you see a ghost coming, stuff's going to come flying off the walls. When you see a little bit of blood, there's going to be a lot of blood. and after a while, after the third or fourth time you wade through a hallway of blood, it's, by this point, it's just like, all right, I didn't want to change these pants anyways,
They should-
yeah.
They should
I
put that on the
disagree.
box,
Whenever-
Josh. Fear, I didn't want to change these pants anyway.
When
I mean-
I got to the dark segments, though, I was excited to see what they had coming for me, and I thought a lot of the things that happened were relatively inventive ideas. My favorite thing is, I don't know if you got there, Sean, but when you walk onto the elevator, the mechanical elevator shaft, and it disappears, and you fall into this pool of blood with a skeleton in it. Did
Yeah,
you
I
get
was
that?
there.
Yes.
I got
Yeah,
that.
that was
That's
cool. That was
my
cool.
Yeah.
favorite. I thought that was super creative and interesting, and I thought a lot of the moments were like that, and were creative enough that even if they weren't scary, they added to the atmosphere of the game. When I say it was
atmosphere of the
scary, I
game.
don't mean I was scared. I mean I was impressed by the atmosphere and was
It was
involved.
creepy.
felt like
It just
was
wasn't
really
scary.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
I think Fear
I'll be
atmosphere
proud
is
to say
actually its
scary is
strongest
jump
suit.
Yeah,
It's a hugely atmospheric game, and it's great for that. The problem is atmosphere versus normal fear.
well, what do you want? Do you want jump scares?
Atmosphere versus normal fear.
Come on, that's quote gold. I'm getting that on a shirt also.
That was good.
But
But seriously, do you want jump scares? What do you want for your
no,
fear?
but here I'm gonna use an example of two of the scariest games. I think that Dead Space 1 is a tremendously scary
Yes,
game.
and Dead Space owes
Yes.
so much to this game, by the way.
Well,
That
right, and
the
that's the thing
atmosphere
is,
is thoroughly based on the
Fear has maybe 6 different types of scares they use. There's the bloody hallway, the exploding bodies, the creepy monsters, and whatever else, But really, it's the same 6 scary set pieces over and over.
Yeah.
But
Well,
those set pieces
that.
for 2005 were hugely inventive. They were
Yeah,
never done.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is they were inventive but not refined.
Yeah, I think
That's a good way to put it.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. So
don't know,
here's
I- No, the way I came off with it, I was like, no, this isn't really scary. When you start in the beginning and it's all hallways of death and people getting incinerated and the creepy girl is everywhere and the creepy guy is everywhere. At the beginning, it was like, wow, they are trying really, really hard. And then it really kind of wound down. And as I played more through it, I was like, I recognize this for kind of the impact that it has. I did draw a lot of ties to Dead Space because I think it does, with the blood and guts everywhere and the ruination that you're kind of wading through. The problem was, and as kind of as I was telling Evan, just nothing could actually kill you. Like when you got into the scary parts, there was maybe
Yeah.
one time where I actually had to shoot something in a scary part. And granted, I didn't get all the way through the game, but I kind of walked out of it going, okay, this was a good start. So like Josh said, it was just not very refined. I kind of walked out like, this is a good start. And for 2005, I was pretty thoroughly impressed. I wasn't very scared at all. I think enemies who came came from behind me and, oh my God, there's a guy right there, that got me to jump, I think, more than anything actually scary ever did. But
I guess,
it was a
yeah.
good start.
I think soda
one thing
cans made
is
me
that
jump more than guys coming from behind me. But
it gets more intense near the end. It does. It builds
Yeah,
back
I
up
believe
at
that.
the end.
okay, well,
like, a
Skylar,
lot.
save that for a minute because I want you to talk about the end of the game because I didn't get there. So I want you to do a quick synopsis and
Josh
cool
might
stuff
be best
that like
for that. I don't
changes at
remember
the
it
end of the
that
game.
well, but we can back and forth about it.
Let's just
Okay.
take a minute or two to talk about it.
But I wanted to piggyback on something else that Jordan said really quick, which was just not only does it have that switch in atmosphere where you know it's going to be a scary part, but a lot of the like scary part climaxes, you either don't have direct control of your character or you're in like an altered space, and so you're in a weird bloody hallway where you're slowed down, or you're walking through a house where it's going slow mo, or like you're not in direct control of your character, like something else is happening, and it becomes very apparent that something is going to scare you there, but it's also not fatal, or like it's not a problem, or that it's kind of there to creep you out, but it's not there to kill you. And I think that's very different than, like, for example, the scares that I got out of Resident Evil 4, where it's like
or Dead Space.
yeah, or Dead
mean,
Space, where it's like the scariest moments in RE4 or Dead Space are moments where like you're walking and you hear the sound of that chainsaw and you're just like, oh fuck, where's that chainsaw guy? Because
that's a good
he
point.
can come out and murder
Kill
you.
you.
Like he is gonna kill you and you have to run away and it takes 1,000 pistol shots and you don't have any ammo, so now you don't know what to do. Like that kind of
This is
scare
some
to me
trauma
is
here, some stored trauma.
well, okay.
Dude.
So the other story that I was going to tell is kind of my story with Fear, which is that when it came out in 2005 on the Xbox, so I didn't play it on the PC because I didn't have a computer, like a gaming computer at the time. But I was 15.
I was like, not all of us have always been PC people, and to be
I
fair,
haven't,
consoles
sir.
have a lot of offering.
I
Well,
was
I haven't-
I was console
let's
until
not
I
wade
bought.
into that debate here.
Yeah, let's
I was
not,
I was
because-
console until I bought my gaming PC 2 years ago with an adult job. Until then, I was console because it was cheap and easy, like Jordan's mom. And
Oh, whoa, no, hold on.
I can attest to that. I
One
can
is
attest.
really gone.
Okay, low blow.
I guess.
That was
Oh,
uncalled
hey, I get a double insult when I insult your mom because Evan's here too.
for.
And then you could be like, which one? And then like you get triple insults.
Multi-kill.
Yeah, exact double kill. But so when Fear first came out on the Xbox, I wanted to get it. I rented it at Blockbuster or whatever, and I played it for
Oh,
maybe
you're dating
25
yourself, bro.
minutes or like 30 minutes until you get to that first place where like the dude's jaw is gone and then Fennel jumps out and hits you with the 2x4.
Fennel?
I played it
Like
until then, and the atmosphere had me way too
Fennel
scared.
like the vegetable.
I'm going to chime in for a second there, too.
That's the
I swear to
vegetable.
God, people, don't name your characters after vegetables either. I know his name is Fennel, but if it sounds like a vegetable, I'm always going to call him Fennel over
Yeah.
Fennel. It's going to
And then
happen.
have a
Why don't you just
delicious
call him
blood-
Fatal?
delicious
That would have
scent.
been such a better name. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So beside the point. But the
ahead.
point is, I rented this game for a week. I played it for 25 minutes. The atmosphere creeped me out so much that I did not pick it back up again until I turned it back in. Like this game had a mental block for me. So I was expecting to go in and be really, really scared. And part of it was because I didn't really like scary movies or scary games at the time, so it was kind of a low barrier for me to get scared by something. But that was kind of my history with it. So going back in, I was really surprised by how little I was scared by it. But that's after I played Dead Space and Resident Evil and kind of got into scary games.
Well, and building off what you were saying, too, about the whole having consequences, is that's the game's biggest problem as a horror game, is the horror scenes don't have consequences. Resident Evil 4 is, as everybody I'm sure who follows games knows, the
'Cause it's out on
holy
every
grail of
platform
horror
ever.
games.
Well, what about Silent Hill?
Horror.
Yeah, Silent Hill as well. But I don't think you can really compare this to those because this was around before that.
Well,
Was it
no,
before Silent
Resident
Hill?
Evil 4 was, I believe when was Resident
What was
Evil 4?
Resident Evil 4?
2005, I think.
Same
Actually,
year then. I mean, but
I'll look it up.
I'd separate
It's
Silent Hill.
2005. You're right.
Silent Hill is much more about the atmosphere and running away from enemies.
Yeah,
You know?
Silent Hill. Yeah, you're right. The integration
Whereas-
of Fear's horror is not as good as other horror games.
Fear,
Like
Dead
integration into the
Space.
gameplay itself.
That's right. And the thing is, I think Fear is strong in a lot of ways, but the only way you ever die is to raucous amounts of gunfire. It's never, a scary challenge that you have to overcome. It's that somebody's going to shoot you. So the fear segments, that give the game its name, are just never really that weighty.
Yeah. Well, and Evan,
That's
Evan and I
valid.
kind of talked about this a little bit. So, Evan, why don't you talk about kind of the systems and the problem you have with some of the systems in the game? Because the bullets part made
gameplay
me think of that.
stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, on topic of the only way of dying is getting shot by a ridiculous amount of bullets.
Good segue.
My main problem is I never knew when I was getting shot, and I can't tell if that's just because it's like the inner like Call of Duty or like inner modern shooter games where like the screen shakes and you get all the red like coming in the screen and you
I
get
think
all
the word you're
distracted.
looking for is inner bro, because if you play Call of Duty, that's the word you're looking for.
Sure. But yeah, that was like my main problem with it is like there were moments where I'd be getting out of a gunfight and I'd realize I had 25 health, but I had no idea. Even though I
Yeah,
had
I
full
think-
health at the beginning.
I think that one of my biggest problems in this game, and it kind of, I feel like this game also owes a lot to like Doom and some of those older PC shooters, because it doesn't have a good feedback system. Like I feel like the only way I found myself dying was not watching my health bar, because I had an abundance of med packs, I had an abundance of ammo. I was able to survive in this game pretty easily if I paid attention to the systems, and that's really the only way I didn't die. Was like there's no good feedback for like when you're getting shot, when something's behind you, like where you're supposed to be going. I can't tell you how many fucking times in this game I was like, I guess I said fuck multiple times, so I guess we're not going. We're going for low R instead of PG-13 now because I can't stop myself.
Jordan's not showing his breasts, but there is a little bit of full sidle from Skylar.
So I can't stop myself.
I mean,
But
my picture is entirely naked.
I think we can still do it. PG-13 can get away with an F-bomb or two. Well,
That's right. You
Okay.
get one F-bomb in the movies is the rule.
oh
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
whatever. We have two. It's fine.
We really
but-
would have changed the flavor of up. I'm just saying.
I think there's something we can talk about relating to what Evan said. Are you done talking about the feedback system, Sean? Or do you
No,
have more
well,
to say?
I was also going to talk about textures, but let's stay on the feedback system for a sec. Give me your thoughts on that,
the
Skylar.
gameplay and the.
Let's do feedback controls.
So what I was going to talk about, I think the guns feel really good though.
I
Like
agree.
shooting
Yes,
the guns
I
has a
agree.
really good feel
Mhm.
to it.
The
a lot of
penetrator
games
feels
fail
good.
at that. Yeah.
Penetrator is the best gun in the game. For those of
Penetrator
you who
is
don't
the
know,
best gun.
Not talking about the Saints Row 3 penetrator, which is just a giant pink dildo you could hit people with.
the penetrator in Fear, for those of you who haven't played it, is a gun that shoots 7-inch long steel railroad spikes at massive
Which are bigger
velocity.
than the actual like barrel of the gun.
Oh yeah, way bigger.
That's right. But I mean, these things, you hit somebody with it will pin them to walls. It will pin them to other people. There's something grimly satisfying about it.
Yeah.
Although
the first time.
another point on the feedback system was I liked the penetrator mostly because I could tell when they were dead, because they would fly
Exactly.
back and land on a wall. I can't tell you how many times I wasted ammo in this game by shooting at somebody in the slow-mo mode for like 10 seconds after they were already dead, but I just couldn't tell.
Well, let's talk about the slow-mo mode for a second. So,
Go for
the
it.
primary gimmick of the game is by tapping control or whatever you bind it to, you enter slow motion for X amount of seconds, and
It's actually called reflex time, I believe.
It's
Yeah.
like it's bullet time from Max Payne, more or less, in a first-person shooter, which
Right.
has some really cool applications. But
Graphically, it's very well done too.
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess.
totally.
absolutely. Things explode,
bullet
voices slow
trails.
down. But I have some problems with the slow-mo, and that's actually probably my biggest problem with Fear in general, is that while the guns feel satisfying, the combat itself is just not good. The
You really
enemies-
think so? I thought the combat was. I think the combat's really
Yeah,
good.
I
I
actually
think the
might
AI is
disagree with
really
that.
good.
The
I
AI
just-
is great, but try playing it without using slow-mo.
I
and you'll
did. When I
realize that
played, I used almost no slow mo.
the enemies, once you hit medium difficulty or higher, they almost always land their shots. Your
Mhm.
health drains super quickly. And the thing is, they just have so much damn health.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
pound
I
your
noticed that
shotgun
too.
rounds into a basic enemy, and he just won't go down. And the thing is, the game entirely relies on you to use slow-mo to pick off headshots all the time. In fact, you pretty much can't kill enemies if you're not in slow-mo.
I definitely disagree with that. I think the combat is really good, and I don't think slow-mo is actually that necessary. I only used it when I absolutely had to, because you can hit headshots without slow-mo, and I think that the AI being smart about it made it even more satisfying to play without slow-mo, because you're like, wow, this AI is way better than most AI and FPSs nowadays.
Evan, you're a big FPS player. What did you think?
I don't know exactly. I definitely I feel like I didn't a couple times when I died throughout the game. There was this tip that always came up that said use slow mo, and the key that it was linked to get out of sticky situations. But I always remember
And use the
using
penetrator to get out of sticky situations too.
Oh no.
Well, I think that gets you into sticky situations.
Regardless.
And once again, we've lost the point.
Yeah.
Man.
Evan, go ahead.
Regardless,
Keep going.
I feel like most of the time I would peek around a corner, go in slow motion, and get as many headshots off as I could before I would get rid of it and just start free firing, spraying and praying, I'll say, just until everyone's dead, and then I end up with 20 health.
That's
Yeah.
I really like it. I really like the fact that it's really integral with the combat system. I think the fact that you can use it every 5 seconds is a little much.
Yeah.
But I think it really works well, and I think it kind of adds a different effect to the game that you don't get in others.
Yeah.
It was definitely the most fun part of the game. I
Exactly.
found that to be the most
Yeah.
my most satisfying moments came out of slow mo. I had
People's
one point
heads
where
exploding.
there was
Yeah.
this dude that was vaulting over a wall, and I went into slow mo and I hit his head with the shotgun, and he flipped back and did 3 flips in the air till he landed on the ground, and it was all in slow mo. So cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
favorite
something
part-
in there. You don't usually see the effects of most ragdoll physics in a normal game. They just kind of crumple.
Yeah.
In
This
slow-mo,
game.
Oh man,
Yeah.
hilarious.
for
see it hardcore.
for better or worse, there were so many times where there was those guards, the ATF guards or whatever they're called,
Uh-huh.
the whatever they are, where I would shoot one of them in the head, and they would just rubberneck, and their head would fly back, and their neck would get 12 inches long, and then it would snap back.
I wanted to point out, I thought it was really funny, and we're on the topic. So, you're supposed to be fighting these, mindless super soldiers, right? And they're all telepathically controlled. The whole time I'm thinking, firstly what Josh said, and I definitely started on medium, and I was like, oh my god, it takes so much to kill them. I definitely would riddle these guys with, multiple headshots, multiple upper body shots, and they just simply wouldn't die. And I was like, oh my god. And then I moved on to easy just to cover more territory. But I did find it really, really funny that for, guys who were supposed to be kind of mindless, they really knew when they died. Nobody just was oh, and died. They were always like,
I can't tell you how many times they decided to program in some kind of twitch where when you kill a guy like you see in the movies, they go, oh, and they spray their gun everywhere.
Right.
Yes.
Damage you.
Yes,
And
it
there
can.
was one particular point where I ran in with a shotgun, right, and I just blew 4 dudes away point blank, and they all spray and pray me after they die, and I died from it. I'm sitting there well, damn it.
Yeah. I thought that was really funny. They're oh god, I lost him. Oh shit, I'm out of ammo. Oh god, we can't find him. I was like, aren't you guys supposed to not really be aren't you supposed to be kind of mindless super soldiers? I just thought it was
They fluctuate.
yeah. I just thought it was really funny the way that just the death was mostly it. It was kind of, it definitely took me a while when shooting in slow mo to be able to realize when somebody was dead or not. Usually there was a point where an animation kicked in, you're like, okay, I think they're dead. But it was just really funny that every time one of these guys died, it wasn't, even if I shot off their head, they continued to scream for another 3 seconds. It was just so, it was so funny.
That's just funny.
Also, go ahead, Skylar.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I would almost rather not know when an enemy is dead than know for 100% sure that he's dead. Which I think, just to bring up Dead Space again, I think that's one big fault with Dead Space is if the enemy drops an item, it's dead syndrome.
And they kind of
Yeah.
fixed that in a second, though.
Which
I thought
they
was
did,
clever.
absolutely. But in the first game, if the enemy dropped the item, it was dead. Otherwise, it most likely wasn't. And I feel like I'd rather have a not knowing than just like that.
Yeah,
Or
I
just
think
like
that's
a
true.
polar situation.
Although I did notice that's how I started knowing if they were dead or not, was if they dropped their
Really
gun.
was item drops? Yeah, I guess I don't remember that well.
Like
But
if their
so-
gun dropped out of their hand,
Right. Okay.
but
fair
you
enough.
could usually
So,
only see it in slow mo.
I know you want to talk about graphics, but I think there's one other gameplay thing we should definitely talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah, go for it.
Which is the non-regenerating health.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
Because
Yes,
that
yes,
is one of my
yes.
favorite things in Fear.
This
Because
is a
I
2005 game.
yeah,
yes,
right.
right. So yeah, people who play games nowadays and maybe didn't play games back then will just not even understand that there's not regenerating health in this game because almost every
Back
game
in
nowadays
my
has
day,
yeah, exactly. Back in my day, every game had non-regenerating health. And I really like that. I think it adds so much to the immersion and the realism of the game to not just like be able to heal your bullet wounds by standing.
Though-
but
though
instead to be able to
fair-
heal yourself with a
Yeah.
cure-all.
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
that's
but
at least
I
at least
feel
you have
like
to
it's
heal
just-
yourself.
That's realism.
At least you're healing yourself though. At least
I
like
feel like
you
at the
have
same
to
time
suffer
we're
the
talking about
consequences permanently.
We're talking about a psychic super soldier here who can slow down time and like get kicked out of helicopters and he's okay. But like he needs to find gauze to activate his super healing powers. That's
But he doesn't
that's
just have like
if Superman had to have a hoagie roll in his back pocket in order to be invincible.
My-
Like,
He never said he had super healing powers necessarily. So
he gets
and
kicked out of a helicopter in like the 4th scene and he's okay. Like
yeah, but bullet wounds are different than fall.
no, I mean clearly you just stuff some gauze in there and you're good to go.
I don't know. I was as I was playing through, one of the things I wrote down I thought was really funny. I know this is apparent to shooters everywhere, but the fact is you're wandering around like these office buildings and sewage, treatment
And
plants.
there's kits everywhere.
Yeah, there's not only med kits everywhere. There's like
There's
the drugs
ammo
that
and
increase your
shotguns.
health. Yeah, like I'm walking through as like who leaves $1 million drugs that can increase your health in the bottom of a sewage treatment plant. And like as I'm walking through the office building, it's like who leaves shotguns and remote mines just laying on their desk.
And
You know
that
what I mean?
is-
An
that is a
arms
good
dealer
counter-
with Alzheimer's.
one of
like yeah,
Did I deliver those shotguns yet?
yeah.
Where am I?
Or the best part, I know Sean talked about this in the beginning, where they like throw the rocket launcher at you, like a few minutes before. Like, who leaves a rocket launcher just sitting in the middle of a hallway in an office building? I've been in plenty of office buildings, and I've never seen AK-47s just lying on the floor.
That's
know?
right. That's
well,
a good
you
counterpoint
you
to
obviously
their
haven't been to
health system.
Texas.
I was saying,
My
there was a note on the bottom of the rocket launcher. It said, "Don't touch my stuff." Signed Duke. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you missed it.
Yeah.
my favorite my favorite trope in games, and we can talk about more tropes later on too, but one of my favorite game tropes is the like weapons cache before the boss. And
Yeah.
this happened in this game twice in my playthrough so far. The first time they introduced the super soldier, which is like the dude whose face looks eerily like Isaac from Dead Space.
That was what I thought,
Um,
too. Yeah.
In the
like the heavy
in the
guy.
giant armor. Yeah, the big heavy guy. And then not the heavy ginger guy though, that's a different guy. And right before the big Ed 209 robot, who I could not help but say Officer Murphy when I saw him. Like before those two, there was this giant weapons cache of like, here's a grenade launcher. You should really take this grenade launcher because I'll bet you're gonna need it for something. Like that kind of telegraphing was just so. I was like, oh man, this game. And games now still do it too. Like it's not a it's not a
Absolutely.
2005
That's something
thing.
that went away.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It's not to kind of berate the game, but it was just kind of funny. That was always like I was when I saw the rocket launcher. I like turned to my girlfriend. I was like, I guarantee you, in about 10 minutes time, I'm really going to need this. And so I
That gamer mentions girlfriend twice in podcast.
Yep, yeah, that's all I'm doing.
Hey, internet! Did you hear? Night
I'm-
Train's got a girlfriend.
I've got a girlfriend. She's in this room. She's legitimate. I can prove it.
Your cat doesn't count.
Oh.
Yeah, your cat doesn't count.
I was gonna say socks can't talk.
Oh.
Even if you put the socks on the cat, they're still only meowing.
Oh god, it's such a joke I could make there, but I'm gonna lose our R rating already.
Okay, yeah, no.
Yeah, we
back
we
to
don't
the
want
point.
any X rating on the podcast. That's my new barrier. I'm okay with the R rating. We don't want an X rating.
I have one other mechanics thing I want to talk about, which is my favorite thing I ever see in first-person shooters ever of all time. Melee.
That's a big intro.
Oh
my
my
God.
For some reason,
Woo.
somebody decided, you know what's way better than shooting someone? Punching them just right in the freaking face.
With the
Or
back of the
roundhouse
gun.
kicking them. Roundhouse kicking
You
them is
see it in
great.
Call of Duty with the knives and the tomahawks. You see it in Halo with the hit in the back of the head. But in Halo, it makes a little bit more sense that, like, you know, you've got an 8 bajillion pound super soldier who's, you know, introducing the back of your skull and his gun and taking them out to a nice dinner at a French restaurant, you know? And then you've got, you know, the Point Man.
Well, I mean, you've
see
already
the
said though,
picture of
he's a
him, he
super
looks a little
soldier.
bit like homeless Alan Moore, you know? and he's just like, you've got these. The whole first like 10 minutes of the game is some guy being like, "You don't understand. They're genetically engineered super soldiers. The army can't do anything against them." And you know, the Point Man like just walks up and boots one in the face, and he dies. Like,
And-
you could pretty much kill most enemies in the game than meleeing them. And in fact, I found my shotgun to be more effective than my punches to be more effective than my shotgun.
Yeah.
Actually, a surprising amount of the time.
Yeah.
It was
It's
kind of
true.
funny.
I do like melee in first-person shooters, and I think it adds elements of realism because, like, you obviously should be able to hit people, but I think it's overpowered in most games. Like,
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
it
And
is.
The damage it does is off the wall.
It's
I
true.
killed
It's true.
two
Just
of the
because you
boss-
can get close to
punch-
someone and hit them doesn't mean it's better than shooting them with metal at high velocities.
And point blank range, nonetheless.
It
Right.
does.
Yeah,
It does when you
exactly.
use the Point Man.
Did anybody else notice that if you shot or hit somebody like from stealth when they couldn't see you, it was like almost always an insta kill? But if you shot them,
Bosses too is
Huh?
the other thing. As a word of warning, I discovered that if you can get the boss to lose sight of you and pop out and punch them, you can two-shot them with it.
yeah, I noticed that really quickly. I was like kind of experimenting. I was like, I wonder how stealthy I can be in this game. And so like if you shot somebody from stealth, like with pretty much any gun, you shot them in the head, it was an insta kill. But as soon as they saw you, it went back to like the 5 headshots would actually kill them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was really funny. It's like, oh god, we see him now, so when he shoots us in the head, we'll be prepared. It was like, what?
Well,
Yeah,
what I
that's a
also-
problem with a lot of stealth games.
Yeah.
Well, what I
Right,
also
Evan.
noticed
Yeah.
with stealth is like it seems so hit or miss.
Oh yeah.
Like you go around one corner, and you would kill everyone in 2 shots, and then if you went around the next corner, they would see you immediately, and then it'd just be this complete like throw grenades and shoot you immediately. A giant wall of bullets would come at you, even though you did the same thing 2 minutes ago or 30 seconds ago even.
Yeah.
You know, it never seemed to be constant, I guess, which I guess kind of makes sense, but like I could never tell when I peeked around a corner if I was going to be able to shoot them in one shot or not.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's where the dialogue of the game comes in because a lot of the times they would talk like about you if they
Yeah.
saw you and stuff, which I think is another good high point of the game. Is just
Yeah, like-
even though Jordan was like making fun of how the AI talks, I think it's actually like pretty well done.
No, I thought it was
Except for when they telegraphed, like, I'm throwing a grenade right now.
Yeah, I love that. In like every game, I just love when people talk about throwing grenades.
I'm going to
Even though
cover
obviously
right
you just
now.
tell people to get out of the way. It's just funny.
Yeah.
I would say like a second and a half after I've already thrown it, just to mess with people.
Like grenade.
I'm
and
gonna
then
be
you're like,
throwing a grenade.
The other thing that the game suffers from is telepathic minion syndrome, which I guess makes sense because they are actually telepathic in the
tell that
game.
minions.
But like the game expects you to be stealthy like half the time. So you act stealthy, you know, you don't get seen, you stealth kill a guy, and somehow it alerts his buddy like 3 hallways down.
And then they all
And
chase
it's-
you forever.
Well, it's really inconsistent. It's the other problem. Like half the
Exactly.
time, I
Yeah.
you know,
That's what Evan was-
I punch a dude in the face in plain sight of 2 others, and they don't react. They're like, I wonder where he is.
Yep. Like I'll
And
shoot
then-
someone in the head with the penetrator, and they'll go flying into a wall and pin there, dangling around and freaking out because physics are hilarious. And then the 2 other guys will have no idea. You can just walk up to them and do the exact same thing, even though they're 5 feet away.
Right,
It's
and
so
then-
inconsistent.
And then the other half of the time, you stealth kill somebody, and a dude like jogs from like 2 counties over. You know, he's,
And throws a
he's
grenade
out of
in
breath.
his
His tracksuit is drenched. You know, he smells like death, and he's like, I heard you kill Tom, and it's like, where did you come from, buddy?
That's actually a fairly legitimate point, if a little dramatic.
Yeah, so
I'm
kind of
always
I
dramatic.
I want to kind of direct this to a different conversation. What I want to talk about here is, and Skylar, if you've played Fear 2 and 3, and Josh, I think maybe you have too. Maybe you can talk to this a little bit, but I want to talk to like what games owe this game a debt, but more importantly, if you were to so let's say you're lead developer on a remake of Fear. What do you change? Like, what do you update? What do you have to change to make this a modern game? Or do you not have to change anything besides the graphics?
So I guess the thing we talked about most was integrating the horror system into the combat and not making it so separated. And I think today that wouldn't really fly because of games like Amnesia and other good horror games that really integrate the like threat of dying and the fear together. And I think that would be the main thing I would update. I really like the non-regenerating health. I would leave that in. I know that there's a counterpoint in that no one leaves med kits around an office building, but I would rather have med kits in my office building than just like magic psychic healing powers. And other than
Unless
that,
you're
I
a
think
character
the game
with magic psychic healing powers.
Exactly. Yes. But then you have to change the name from Point Man to Magic Psychic Healing Power Man.
Or Wolverine.
You can no longer be the point man.
Right, exactly. And that would be horrible. I think the AI it's not great, but a lot of FPS AI is not great. And I think the AI in this game is good enough that even with some slight improvements, it would be able to compete with AI in FPSs nowadays.
Well, I think modern FPS AI owes its lineage to Fear. Like I think this was a turning point in AI for like, you know, when you look at something like Gears of War or Modern Warfare or anything that uses cover, anything that uses squad-based AI, anything that coordinates, like I didn't find the AI very impressive, but that's because I'm playing it after playing all the Gears of War games and playing Halo and playing, you know, all these games that benefited from. I don't know if Halo 1 was out before this, but Halo 2 and 3 definitely
Halo
were
1 came
after.
out in 2000 with the launch of the Xbox.
Yeah.
The original Xbox, so yeah.
So those were out already. So maybe Fear owes a little bit to Halo 1, because I did feel a lot of this game felt like Halo. The other thing that felt like Halo to me that drove me friggin' nuts was the texture system. Like, I can't tell you how many times, and Evan, you saw this when you were watching on the stream, how many times I would be like, I feel like the subtitle for this game should be Fear, Fear, where the hell am I supposed to go next? Because, like, there were so many times where, like, all of the textures and the hallways and everything looked the exact same, which reminded me a lot of Halo 1, where I would be like, so I just went in a giant circle. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
That happened to me today, actually. Like, in the office building, I walked in 4 circles because I had no freaking idea where I was going until I realized I had to jump up into the ceiling and walk around. But I got stuck on that part for a long time. For like 5 minutes.
Granted that like the textures might be at fault for that, but I think that's somewhat intentional because like another element of like the Japanese.
I don't think it's intentional.
Be, like, to not know where you're going, and like, I think that's important in this game is to not always know exactly where you're going and to have a non-linear feel to a linear game.
But I don't think it's intentional in the same way that like Amnesia is intentional, where you're like you walk back through the same hallway multiple times because that's something that's supposed to scare you in the game, or like that sort of stuff. I just felt like it was bad level design. I felt like it was like they were like it was just like weird, like for example the part where you have to shoot the gas line and then there's like fire everywhere and you have to find ways around the fire. Like that whole part, there were pieces where you didn't have to jump down to where you were before, but there was a ledge where you could jump down to where you were before. And there was no other reason to it other than the fact that it was just a cyclical level that, like, there was nothing to go back there for.
I don't know.
And it was just a big circle you could go in multiple times.
I don't know. One of the first things I noticed is I kind of enjoyed that the levels weren't super linear. I mean, again, I don't play a whole lot of FPSs, but it was kind of nice to kind of wander around or not have the kind of Dead Space route where there's kind of the one main path, and then there's like the one way you can veer off, and you want to go veer off, there's probably a reward for you there, but you can just kind of stick to the main path. I thought it was kind of nice. What did bother me, though, is that for a lot of parts, it didn't seem like there was any real progression within the game. And that was something I was watching Day 9 do some stuff on Halloween. He was playing this kind of like beta alpha version of a game. It was one of the randomly generated levels. It was supposed to be a scary game. The problem was... Yeah, no, it wasn't Slender. It was some... I don't remember what it was called. But he was going through, right?
Was it paranormal?
No, it was like some creature release where he was in like a lab and all these creatures got loose. He said it was like
I've
a
never heard of that.
beta version of a. It looked like an indie game.
Whatever. I love
Anyway,
randomly generated level
yeah,
games.
it was
That's
it was
for another
randomly
day.
generated. The problem was he would like go through all these places, right? And there'd be like hints of scary things, and every now and again he'd run into a monster. But he kept saying that the problem was he didn't feel like he was actually progressing or going anywhere, and that's where I felt what kind
Yeah.
of threw me
I
off
got
about
really
the
bogged
levels.
down in the
Yeah,
game.
it's like the whole time I'm like going through, and it's funny watching Sean's stream because you would just like barrel through these places, and like as I'm going through, I'm like meticulously checking offices and looking around, and it just got to the point where it was like there's no real reason to do this.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like a lot of the level just didn't seem to have a purpose there, and I recognize that that was probably intentional. That they wanted to have some part where you're intentionally not doing anything to kind of contrast with the parts where you are doing things and where it's scary and all that. But if there was kind of one fault with the levels, I like that it wasn't very linear. I like that it kind of felt like in the chaos I was kind of going whichever way, seemed to get me out of things. But at the same time, it just felt like there was a lot of time where it just wasn't doing anything.
Well, especially when you
Yeah,
always have 10 med kits, what
Right.
what good is 10 extra health going to do me? Like I didn't feel like I had an incentive to search for the reflexes or the health bonuses because 10 extra health, I don't give a shit, and the extra reflex time it reloads so fast that I can just use it, get 4 headshots, pop back behind a wall, wait for 10 seconds, and then it's back again.
One of the
Granted,
problems I
yeah.
found was on higher difficulty. Once you hit the I think it's called impossible, reflex and health is really necessary. And if you don't take the time to
That's
find all
fair.
those stupid little hypos, you're way mismatched by the end of the game because the guns don't get better. But the enemies, because they start with such great aim, the only way they create difficulty is just by ramping up their health values. So a
course.
soldier by the end of the game is unbelievably beefy compared to a soldier by the beginning. And one of the things I watched is I watched a soldier, mow me down while he had 8 penetrator spikes sticking out of his noggin.
I call that
and at that
Bioshock
point I was-
syndrome, by the way, where you
Well,
have to
right.
go and find everything or else you can't beat the game.
And
That's
that was
fair.
the problem. Is by the end, if you don't find it, it's not good, and that's not a great thing to have in just a pure first-person shooter. If
So
you've
that's
got
kinda the
RPG
opposite
elements
problem.
in it, okay, but at its core, Fear is Call of Duty Halloween Edition.
Well, there was also way more
Except for not, 'cause
platforming
Call
than
of
I was
Duty is a
expecting.
bad first-person shooter with regenerating health.
Well, there was
But let's not talk about Call of Duty.
yeah. Let's not sully this show with Call of Duty.
Seriously,
there was way more platforming than I was expecting too. By the way, so I think if you're going to make this a modern game, I would take out some of the platforming elements, walking over small beams, jumping between different platforms, doing that kind of stuff. It kind of took me out of the experience. Like I really wasn't into those sections at all.
Were you not into them just because they seemed unrealistic? Like if they were
Yes.
implemented better?
Yeah,
would
they
you have
seemed
been to them?
ridiculous. Yeah, they seemed completely ridiculous and unrealistic. Something that I
I
would
mean,
never
so-
have to actually do in that situation.
The cardinal rule is unless you have a pure platforming game like Mirror's Edge, don't put platforming in a first-person game.
Yeah,
it's,
it just
it's
didn't make
just
sense
not
to
a
me.
good idea
Yeah.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it does not mesh well.
They just seem in the way, and they seem like they're kind of just like they have to obligatorily be there just because they want to throw in some little.
Something else to do. Like, well,
Platforming thing.
because part of the problem is because you don't have enemies to fight in the scary sequences, they have to fill it with something. So they fill it with
Yeah.
platforming. They fill it with, like getting lost in the level. They fill it with other stuff. And I just think if this would have taken the Dead Space route, where the scary parts were the enemy parts, then you have a little more of an impetus for avoiding some of that other stuff. But so Evan, if you had to update this game, what's something you would add or change, or like something else you would do?
I think I'd probably go kind of in the same way where like I would add a consequence or some kind of like legitimate reason to be scared, I guess. Like I would try to find a way to make the scary parts more interactive with the game and not just a part you run into a dark hallway, things get staticky, you run into a little black cloud and you get like a weird vision or whatever. but like I would try to make it where you have to use your gun or you have to run or you have to at least do something to make sure that you don't die by the scary girl or escape a pool of blood because something's chasing you or something like that.
Yeah. Anyone else have thoughts? What are some good things? Skylar said that he would still keep the non-regenerating health. What's some other stuff you'd keep from the game?
I definitely would keep stuff like that, and I definitely would, other than improving the AI. I think the AI is really fun to play
Yeah,
against,
I
even though
agree.
they are kind of ridiculous to kill when you do have to put 5 penetrator nails into their head before they die. But like it is fun because you know that no fight is going to be the same.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
no firefight, no matter how you approach it, is going to be the same because each person is in a different place and they move differently and they approach you differently and you approach them differently. And I really
And
like that. I think it makes it just a little more like you kind of just feel more into it other than just seeing wave after wave of like people.
I think
yeah,
what Evan's trying to
I
get
totally
at
agree
is
with
that
that.
it didn't seem scripted, and I think that's
Yeah.
probably something that who are playing a lot more modern shooters. A lot more modern shooters tend to be more linear. They're setting you up in situations that tend to be a little bit more scripted, and I think that was kind of the fun of this. Is that obviously they would come from certain areas and they'd spread out and doing certain things, but it really did feel like every firefight was a little bit different. And it just didn't feel so. It felt a little bit more organic as opposed to even as I'm running in there, in slow mo with my shotgun, just rapidly shooting the giant guy in the heavy armor with the plasma gun or whatever. I mean, even that felt a little bit more organic than a lot of more modern shooters, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else people want to add to that part? To that part? To that
I
section?
think
I think and this is me griping, and don't get me wrong to all you listening out there, I actually really like Fear. I think it's a really well done game. Just being a game developer, it's my job to nitpick, and also being a jerk, it's my job to nitpick.
Yeah, I think
definitely
that's
that
more the
second one.
qualification. Yeah.
Definitely the second one. Yeah, yeah. I think we would all agree that that's the second one.
I admit it, it's fine. But the one thing that really marks this as a 2005 game for me, more than anything, because the graphics are fine, they hold up by today's standards on a good computer.
I agree.
Yeah.
The AI I still think is pretty decent. Minus a bit of balancing with health pools, I think it's all fine. My biggest gripe, I guess, about the game is the story is very weak. Not in the sense that what they've written is weak. I mean, the whole story, Alma having kids, way too young because government and bad people and genetic super soldiers and all that, that's all fine. I mean, the actual story behind it's A-okay. It's the way that they show it. There's just not a lot of story present in the game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cutscenes, but there's not a lot of story, which is kind of odd.
Well, the
to
story's
say.
super simple. You're chasing one guy for the entire game, and then there's a little twist where you find out he's related to the creepy girl. But like outside of that, you're like it's a very linear. Like you're chasing him, and now you're chasing him in an office, and now you're chasing him in the sewer, and now you're chasing him in a building.
Well, and that's what I think dates the game the most is nowadays you need to have a story.
Yeah.
That's more than I'm chasing a guy. Even Doom 3, which is, blarg blarg shoot 'em up the most, which is, by the way, a game I love very dearly,
Doom 3 is amazing.
has more story. They've got the BioShock style audio logs and everything, and it just felt a little lacking that I'm chasing this guy and he pops up an inordinate amount of time to just taunt you or talk or something. But for however many cutscenes there are in the game, he just not a lot of story gets across.
It's interesting because the story, and I think Sean and I were talking about this, the story is very much, you get as much story as you want to put into it. So me meticulously
I agree
searching...
with that so much.
Yeah, me meticulously searching every single room and cubicle. I found all the phone calls and all the little, computer logs, and I listened to them. And so by the time I rescued that second person or whatever, I had a pretty good idea of what was going on. Whereas contrast, Sean got about just as far as I did, and he had absolutely no idea. You know what I mean? Because
The whole time I was like on Steam,
Yeah, this is
chatting
funny.
to Jordan during my stream, being like, "Wait, who's this girl? Why am I afraid of her? Who are these
Yeah.
soldiers? Where did they come from?"
I think what's funny about those like phone calls and stuff is Dead Space really I feel like takes homage
Yeah.
to that, where they
Yeah.
throw in this kind of like audible backstory.
And it makes it, yeah.
And in the same way where they're like, hey, I heard something, like, what's going on? In the exact same way where you get a phone call in Fear and it'd be like, hey, I heard there was like some commotion in this one room. Is everything okay? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that was kind of the same thing in Dead Space.
Yeah, it definitely kind of is Dead Space is again a lot of what I thought of. The cool thing about Dead Space though is that you had the story. It was a similar kind of story, right? You're kind of chasing, you're trying to figure out what's wrong. You're chasing your girlfriend. You're trying to save your little people or whatever. But at the same time, the audio logs and stuff like that were kind of added. They weren't necessary. That I think is
Right.
the difference. In Fear, it was
If
entirely
you're not
necessary.
looking for it in Fear, you're missing out on the story.
Yeah.
Versus in Dead Space, if you're not looking, you still get the story. You're just getting not the extra.
Right, right. And so I think that has some merits. Like, it was kind of fun to piece the story together. Like, okay, so these people are related. Oh, it's a government cover-up. I mean, the story I didn't think was that inventive, but it was kind of fun to piece that together. Where I think it went wrong is it was too much piecing. You know what I mean? Like, you had the big, broad framework of chase the Paxton Fettel guy. I mean, but there was too much...
Chase the fennel.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it. You love
Chase the
fennel.
Fennel. You know what I mean? But it just... There
Get
wasn't
your
enough of
6
that.
to 8 servings a day.
8 servings of fennel a day sounds.
That's a lot of fennel. I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't stomach that much fennel. It's too much fennel.
Fennel's good though.
I think the thing we all really have to talk about, I'm going to play Sean here for a minute, is the fat ginger guy. We can't end this.
He was in
podcast
the
without
story
talking about
for way too long. And did you guys notice? Okay, so music. There's not a ton of music in this game, which means that when it did come up, I really noticed it. And oh
Really
my god,
boring.
when you are near that guy, the music that plays is like this Danny Elfman, like do 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 do
so jovial.
with like a piccolo flute, and like it's like the worst music I've ever heard. I was like, nothing could be worse in this game right now than the music playing with this guy.
It was very funny. Like, as soon as I saw him, like, the first time you actually see him, like, and you hand him the comm link or whatever, I like, had to pause the game, and I'm like, I have to write this down. I was like, here I am, like a super special operatives guy, armed to the teeth, and I've just been barely surviving on a building that's like falling apart. It's covered in super soldiers, you know what I mean? And there's like a creepy, dead, evil alien girl chasing me, and I barely survived. And here's this fat guy who's eating fucking chips. I don't see a gun on him. I don't see a fucking thing
Dude, it's
around.
because he's, fat people are immune to ghosts.
It's just-
that's the message at the heart of
Isn't
Fear.
that the message of like
Is
ghost
that-
hunters and every ghost hunting show? Everyone on those shows is always fat except for the
The
girls.
only
and they're
thing that
always the most
ghosts are
scared.
afraid of is cholesterol. I mean, that's what I get from Fear.
I want to point out that the chips were called cheesy poofs. It said that on the box. That made me happy.
One thing about the music that I actually saw on the Wikipedia page is that they said that they actually wrote the music in reaction to scenes instead of composing it for scenes. So they said it was
That
more
makes a lot of
cerebral and tailored to each individual event. So I'm not sure what
I
that
feel
means.
like somewhere out
Apparently
there,
they
somebody
like
drooled on a keyboard and was like, "Oh shit, I've got a deadline."
right, and then they're like, "This guy is fat. We could pretend he's dancing and then play Happy Piccolo music."
It's
What is-
just,
Yeah. I want to take a second because I'm sure we could dedicate a whole show to this. And I'm not, I'm actually like borderline malnourished, underweight. But what is it that games have against people of larger body types? Like,
They're always either the bad guy or the stupid fat friend.
Well, I was gonna say, there's only one positive fat character I've ever seen in a game, and it's not Blob from Street Fighter, because Street Fighter is basically a walking fat joke. What's his name? The fat guy.
What?
Like Roger or something. You know what I'm talking about, Sky?
I don't
Sky?
think you're talking about Street Fighter. Cause
Street Fighter. He's
there's
huge.
no-
He wears a tracksuit.
That's
He was
Tekken,
in the
I
latest
think.
one. No,
Are
he
you
was
talking
in the
about
latest
Tekken?
one.
Now
No,
we're all.
it's-
okay, not related. Josh, keep
The
making
point
What are you
the
talking
point is-
about? They're, what? Rufus.
Make your mark.
Rufus. Okay, thank you.
Rufus.
See, I
Thank
knew I
you.
was right.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
But the only positive, like, larger character I can actually think of in any game I've played lately is Borderlands 2, and that's Ellie.
Yeah.
And even there, she's still used, every once in a while for the cheap fat joke.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that's
I mean,
completely unrelated to Fear.
Well, I
you're
think-
a ghost, in which case you're afraid of cholesterol.
I think that's a bigger media problem we have in general, though. Like, we don't know how to write convincing, smart, fat characters, and this is speaking as a guy who weighs 260 pounds. Like we don't know how to do that without making cheap jokes at them, and I think that's a larger media problem. I don't blame Fear for that, certainly.
It's all
No.
Fear's fault because of the fat ginger. That was
Fear started fat jokes. Yeah.
Fear.
Fat jokes before Fear. It's
I
actually
just-
the F actually stands for fat.
Oh God. Anyway, okay. So I'm
That's
gonna refocus this back
Yeah, let's
on
devolve.
something else that I want to talk about. So quick. Other tropes, yeah, we talked about creepy little girl, super soldiers, and government cover-up. Oh, that's one I never heard about
Ginger
before,
guys.
right?
Government cover-ups are all over. That's like a pop culture trope, though.
Yeah, that's one I've never heard of before, of course.
The black helicopter.
Yeah, helicopter.
the black the like token black guy who's the demo guy.
Oh,
Why did you
P.S.
go from black helicopter to black guy?
Seriously.
I thought that's what you guys were talking about. I was just thought it was the
You
I
just
it
thought
was
his
really
nickname was
funny.
Helicopter? You can have him on the same team as the Coltrane. It'd be perfect together. Oh God.
my
Okay,
God.
so
Oh, my
I'm going to take us off this slightly racially insensitive thing and just point out that Token Black is also played by the guy who voices another one of my favorite Token Blacks, David Scully, who plays Sergeant Johnson from Halo.
That's right. He is in every single game as exactly the same character every single time.
That's the
Pretty
point I was
much,
trying to
yeah.
make.
Military
Thank you
black
very
guy.
much.
You can guess that that's played by David Scully.
Well, and they're all based off of Ernie Hudson, or not Ernie Hudson, Carl something from Predator.
Carl
Why
Weathers.
can I not remember his last name right now?
Carl Weathers.
Was it Carl Weathers?
I think so.
No, it's not Carl Weathers.
No, that's the actor.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Carl
Carl just made me think of
Don't
that.
do that to me,
Carl
man.
from
Carl
Jimmy
Weathers
Neutron.
is a soul singer.
Is it Carl from Jimmy Neutron?
Carl from The Simpsons. Yeah.
No,
No,
okay.
Carl from Jimmy Neutron is based on the ginger guy.
I just say Carl Weathers is a soul singer. It's definitely not Carl Weathers.
Okay, we'll make the point.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. What's happening?
Half this podcast has legitimately been Josh trying to remember his obscure reference he's been trying to make to something or other.
Not obscure.
This
I'm just
brings me
throwing
back to
it
the
out.
days of WoW rating when he would be like, "Oh, you guys, this boss fight is just like this tiny
pretty sure
Japanese
it's
game
dice."
that nobody's ever played."
I'm pretty sure
Isn't
it's
it
Geist.
geese?
Okay, no, we can't bring WoW jokes into the podcast. That's that.
Okay.
Ever.
Anyway,
Sorry,
All right.
inside, and this is all getting edited out.
I'm not doing any editing. This is live to hard drive. I don't want to do any friggin'
I
editing.
love it. I love it.
Okay, so any other points anyone wants to end or bring up before we end the show? Any other stuff that came up in your playthroughs that you're thinking about?
I think that trivia, Sean, that you found, I think that'd be a funny way to kind of end the show.
And then you have to let me. You have to let me introduce the next game because I've already prepared a long list of amazing things that will introduce that game.
God, oh God.
Do we want to do like a final thoughts recap where everybody takes 30 seconds and give their final thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah. I had that on my list as something to do, so let's do that.
Throw us your trivia though. Wait, let's hear the trivia.
Which
Well,
which
you
trivia
can't,
were you
like-
talking? Okay. Well, I had
Something
okay. So I had 3 trivia points. One of them, which was something I totally noticed on my stream. One of the most of the bulletin boards in the game, you see TPS reports, which are from Office Space.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
so,
I did know that. That's awesome.
So I thought that was awesome.
Oh, also,
Uh,
I saw a red swing line stapler in the office building.
Oh yeah. Good point. Good catch. I didn't see that.
Nice.
In the game, there are several references to the sci-fi horror movie Event Horizon, which I totally thought of when I was playing this game. Anyway, I love that movie. Warts and all. It's not a good movie, but it's a fun
No.
movie.
God, no. So
you
fun.
can see a magazine cover in some levels that reads Event Horizon Found, and also on the multiplayer level Asylum, there's a line written on the wall of the room that says Liberate tu tetament ex inferis, the same word heard in the distress call sent by the Event Horizon movie. That was terrible Latin by somebody who took 4 years of Latin.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's actually really good trivia. I did not know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
thought that was
very
kind of
cool.
cool. So the same line is in both.
Nice.
The name of the main antagonist, Alma, roughly translates from Latin to nourishing one and is the root for the phrase alma mater, which literally translates to fostering mother. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Nice.
Alma obviously is the mom, so I guess that makes sense. All of these come from IMDb, by the way. And then my last one was that Douglas Holliday is played by the guy who plays Sergeant Johnson from Halo. Which the second I heard his voice, I had Cole was on Skype. My brother was on Skype, and I said that sounds just like Sergeant Johnson. Cole, go on IMDb and find out if that's Sergeant Johnson. And sure enough, it was.
Can we just point out that Fear would be a very different game if Master Chief was the lead?
It would be awesome. It will be awesome. Okay,
Awesome in
so
the worst kind of way.
let's do summary. I'll start. Um, I had a fun time playing through Fear. It was definitely important for me to come back to it after I was scared by it when I first played it. I felt like the scares didn't really get me every time, but the times that it did get me, I was like, that was smart, that was good. And ultimately, I just feel like it was too didactic. It was like one half of it was shooty, 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 and then it was like, here's a scary part. I feel like if they would have integrated those a little bit better, it would have ranked a little higher on my list of scary games. But I feel like this comes in under Dead Space, under Resident Evil 4. It still comes in under those games. Like I don't feel like it's better than those games. But I definitely am glad I played through it. I thought it was fun. Let's go with Evan next.
I really enjoyed it, especially because I really do enjoy first-person shooters. Uh, I definitely have not really gotten into some of the bigger, like older games that have been around for a while, and I was really impressed by it. The only real Fear I had seen was probably about an hour of Fear 2, just watching my friend play it on Xbox, and I kind of thought it was really cool because it seemed just kind of different. But I really liked it. I did think there were a lot of cheap little scares. Not that any like scared me for a long time, but because I kind of forgot about them pretty quickly. Just because, like Sean said, it did go from being a scary part to literally 30 seconds later you're up and shooting things again. So I feel like the scares, while they do get you, you're pretty much done with them almost immediately until you get to another scare part again. But I still really like the game in general.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Josh, hit us.
I think Fear is a great example of just kind of looking back in a time capsule. You can see most, if not all, of the kind of modern horror game tropes in it. And I think at the time it was a much stronger game than it is now. If you go back and play it now, it may not hold up to the Dead Spaces or the, I won't say Resident Evil because that came out at the same time, but it won't hold up to Amnesia or Dead Space or many other horror games we're used to now. But it's a fun play. It's $5. You won't go wrong with it. You won't regret your time. And it sets up to, a series that the second one, I didn't play the third one, but the second one's a pretty strong game in its own right. So, it's not a bad way to spend $5 and get caught up on a pretty good horror series.
I did play a bit of the third one just because we haven't talked about that at all.
Oh, yeah. Talk
I
a
have
little
game
bit about
ADD.
the future ones.
I have a game ADD though, so I didn't play that much of it. But what I played of it was quite fun, and it definitely like harkened me back. And the shooting and the combat is just as satisfying, if not more satisfying. And like the scares are really good. And I don't know, I really liked the third one. What I played of it, I'm just way too ADD to finish games nowadays, which is bad.
I think it's just bad.
Although I will add with Fear 3, it did get the worst reviews of the
That's
3.
true. That's true. I did see that, and I don't know. I guess maybe I didn't get far enough to see that. Yes.
Yeah.
Still, Fear 1 and 2 are without a doubt worth playing, especially at their heavily discounted price.
Right.
And the other thing I would throw out is it's just a shame that they dropped the multiplayer.
Was the multiplayer that good?
It was fun. I mean, would it hold up to COD or something now? No, but it would be nice to, have gotten the multiplayer components though.
Yeah. Okay, Skylar, hit us with your summary.
Okay, so I don't know. I've always liked Fear. I really liked the scary segments, even though they were so separated, which I think was one of the biggest problems. I really liked them. Like I said, the elevator shaft falling into the blood thing is like one of the most memorable Let's try it again. It's one of the most memorable video game moments I have out of video games, and I think it's a really fun game. The combat is satisfying. I agree with Josh in that it probably wouldn't stand up today to horror games necessarily, but I think it stands up okay to FPSs.
Yeah.
In that the AI is good and the shooting is satisfying. So yeah, I would buy it again if I hadn't just bought it recently to play it again.
All right, Jordan, give us your wrap up.
Okay. I gotta kind of tie back to Josh here. I think looking at it kind of in its own as a history major in person, everything is within its own historical context. So when it took me a minute or two of playing to really kind of grab myself back into that mode. Like first time I had to use a health pack, I was like, "What in God's name is this shit?" Oh yeah, this is how shooters used to be. It was so weird. You know what I mean? But it was fun. I really did like the combat, and as somebody who's not a super first person shooty kind of guy, the combat was fun, and I was really enjoying it, even with ludicrous amounts of shotguns and slow-mo and stuff like that. I think, as everybody's kind of said, the disconnect between what was supposed to be scary and what was supposed to be shooty was kind of a downer for me, and it kind of ruined some of the scary for me when I realized nothing scary could kill me. I think the only scariest thing that actually could kill me was the ninja. Like one of the ninjas, like
those guys.
Oh, it popped out. It like knocked me back. I was like, oh shit. And then at that point, I was like, okay. And then I shot it with a shotgun, and that was kind of like the only real scary, like, oh my god moment that it had.
Assholes.
It has kind of a predecessor for stuff like Dead Space. I thought it was great and fun to play, kind of for its own time capsule-y historicalness.
Yeah,
the reason you couldn't get into it that quickly was because you didn't read the "What Happened in 2005" list before you started playing.
Hurricane.
I think-
Oh my god.
I think
life.
that should be a repeating segment. Skylar, you should do that on the next show. I really like
You
the
don't
what
even
happened.
know. It's already about to happen when I talk about the next game.
No, don't spoil it for the next show. We're gonna save
Are you
it for
sure?
the next show.
Are you
Yeah,
sure?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
you
be
guys,
careful.
you're
Yeah.
gonna like it.
Yeah, we're gonna save it for the next show, but you can give us your quick thoughts on the next game we're going to talk about. So we're almost at the end of the show here. The last segment that I wanted to do was something that I cleverly named Quick Attacks because I really like Pokemon. Tell me, just give me like your favorite game that you're playing right now, because this is not a modern games podcast.
like it.
There's 1,000 modern games podcasts out there, so I didn't want to do something where we sat around and just talked about modern games all the time. But I do think it'll be kind of cool to talk about. Give me like 2 sentences about a game you're really into right now and why you really like it. Let's start off. We'll go in reverse order. Jordan, hit me with what you're playing right now.
Oh god, that's hard. Before this, I was playing Skyrim because I live that XKCD comic where I buy popular games, 6 months afterwards when they're cheap. I won't talk about Skyrim because I think it's been overdone. One game I bought during the Steam summer sale, which I know is a couple months away, that I absolutely loved was Bastion. And I know that's not a super modern game either, but that was like one of those. It was like 60% off or something. And I was like, oh, it's supposed to be cool. That has easily. I mean, Skylar talked about like one of his favorite gaming moments. Bastion was like some of the most fun 10 hours I've ever played gaming. I went back and played through the whole thing again just for funsies. So if we're gonna talk about like a notable game that's been happening recently in my life, it was definitely Bastion.
Yeah, just something that's like got its hooks in you, like something you keep thinking about that you've really liked that you've been playing. Okay, let's go with Skylar.
So the game I've been playing most lately, aside from Dota 2, which we're not going to talk about those games at all, is Assassin's Creed 3, which is awesome and really fun. I didn't play either of the 2 last games, but I played Assassin's Creed 2 while I was in Italy, and it was basically the coolest video game experience I've ever had in my life.
Nice.
Because I would walk outside and see buildings that aren't like important buildings, just like random buildings, and then they'd be in the game. And I was like, what the crap? This is amazing. So Assassin's Creed 3, I'm really satisfied with it. I really like the story direction, bringing it to like the US, and it's like, I don't know, I really like it. And then another game I've been playing recently that's not like a AAA game, because I'm really into indie games and like obscure games, so me talking about a AAA title is really out of character. Yeah, right? So it's not a very new game, but I've been playing it with friends a bunch, and it's called You Don't Know Jack. And it's a remake of a super old game that people might remember, but they've released a new version on Steam, and the new Steam version is amazing. It's super fun, and I play it all the time, and if you've never played that game, you should play it.
I'm going to buy that. We should totally play that together. I played that game so much in like middle school.
I'm absolutely down. We should like all meet up and play it one day for our podcast instead of actually podcasting.
How much is it on Steam, Skylar?
I don't know. I'll check while the next person talks.
Okay, Josh, hit us with your quick attack. What are you doing?
My quick attack for today would probably be XCOM.
You took mine.
Nice.
I never actually played the original XCOM. I know, terrible. I'm a failure.
Maybe we'll do it for the show once.
I think we should.
We should
I've been
do it. That'd
loving
be
the
awesome.
new one.
I really
It's
want to
a
play the old one.
Great,
Yeah.
turn-based
I'll put that on our
strategy game
list.
with some really cool, really, really cool perks to it. Take it in a modern day setting. It's like playing Men in Black meets X-Files meets the 1950s. It's awesome. My one complaint is so punishingly hard. If you're into games like Dark Souls or Demon Souls or just anything that, is not, will slap you around a bit and makes you love it more, then definitely pick up XCOM because it's so just brutally fun and just plain brutal.
It's definitely
Yeah.
a roguelike in the best sense of the word.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Evan, give us your quick attack.
I know this game isn't exactly modern, as in like in the past like year, but the game I'm really raving about right now is Company of Heroes. It's a
Nice.
World War II based real time strategy game. Actually the new sequel to it is coming out I think in February of 2013. It's actually really hard, and it's not even based on like winning with a bunch of units and just killing everything, but it is really about strategy and like making sure you're in the right positioning, because positioning is a huge deal. And I think it's great, and it's actually I think $10 right now on Steam, and it's really cheap. There are 2 expansions that are out right now that are really cheap as well. If you can try to pick up a copy of it, I would. It is too much fun.
Nice. Okay, so mine.
Your turn.
I've definitely been playing XCOM a lot. That game has its hooks in me, man. That game is so good. I won't talk too much more about it, but check it out. It's $50 on Steam. It's such a bargain. That game you can play through 100 times. Like, it's just really, really satisfying, especially as someone who loves turn-based strategy. I played Final Fantasy Tactics for probably 100 hours. Like,
Oh my
I just
God.
love strategy-based games, so this game is perfect for that. The other game that I'm going to talk about is actually another roguelike game, FTL.
Yeah,
Faster-
that's a
Yes.
good game. That is a
Faster
good
Than
game.
Light. That it's only like $15 or $20 on Steam, and
Yeah,
that
it's
game
definitely indie.
that game is so good. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been late for work because I've been like, "Oh, I have some extra time in the morning. I'll just start up one game." And I just get sucked in, and I like, "Oh shit, well, I guess I'm not taking the bus to work. I'm going to have to drive today because I I'm going to be late." That game has its hooks in me, and it's great. You can like pause it to strategize and then also play it in real time. It's really
Brutally difficult, though.
yeah,
also.
really, really hard, but also fast. Like, games are 15 to 20 minutes, so if you have a bad game, you just start over and go back through it again, and it's based on the fact that you're going to be going through the game multiple times. So, you unlock new ships, and like there's challenges to do to unlock new versions of the ships you have, and that game's great. So I definitely recommend picking that game up.
All right. So anyway, You Don't Know Jack is $20 on Steam, but
$20. Okay, that's
it
pretty
doesn't
good.
have online multiplayer. Is the problem? So it only is local. So we'd have to meet up to play.
Oh,
it.
it's only local. Bummer. Do you think they'll add
You
that
have
in a
to
patch?
No, it's pretty. It's been out for like a year or so. So probably not.
Oh,
but
damn it.
whatever. You don't live
I
that
think
far away.
isn't there an Xbox version that has online multiplayer
Yes,
though?
the Xbox version has online multiplayer. I could buy that. I'd be down.
Okay, I might get that. I'm going to be playing my Xbox a lot once Halo 4 ships. So.
Oh yeah,
probably.
Halo 4.
I'm so excited. I don't even care what haters think about them rebooting Halo and starting up again. I love Halo, and I'm so excited to see where they take Halo 4.
Nice.
I can't wait till that game gets here. Anyway.
Anyway,
Talk
okay.
about what's for next week.
5 on
Explain
5.
and explain the process, Sean.
Okay, so this is kind of what I'm seeing for this show. I want this to be a show where people can either download the next game we're going to play, or watch me stream it, or have played it themselves and get enjoyment out of like feeling like part of the conversation. So I want this game. I want this show to be something people can email to. You can email us at 5on5podcast@gmail.com. You can follow
The
us on
number
Twitter.
5, right?
Yeah,
Number 5.
both number 5. You can follow us at 5on5 at Twitter, and I'm going to be tweeting when I go live with my stream. So if you want to watch that, keep an eye on that.
I will actually be starting streaming this week as well.
Yeah, I might
Yeah,
start
and I'll-
streaming as well. So
And I'll give you guys access to the Twitter account so you can post when you're going to be streaming too.
cool.
Yep. And guys, if you have game suggestions, post on the Twitter, send us an email. We want to
Or
hear
just-
your
yeah.
suggestions as well.
Twat to
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Send us
Fine,
your
too.
suggestions. Send us your feedback for the show. This is a new show. We're looking for feedback. I'd really, really love to hear what people think. So
Tell
send
your
us
friends
email.
about us.
let us know. We're gonna read user emails if we get them for the next show. So if you send us an email, we'll read it on the show. Either send us your experiences in Fear, or what you thought about it, or other things that you're thinking about, and we'll read that on the show too. So
Anything
we want
you have
this to
say
be
about the next
interactive.
game we're playing, too.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the next game. The next game we're going to be playing is Overlord, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah, and I think we need some clarification. So, Overlord, also known as Supremacy Your Will Be Done, was released in 1990 in Europe, where
No.
you could create and protect a network of planetary colonies.
No,
and
that's
defeat
the
a
wrong
computer
Overlord.
adversary. I'm aware.
That's the wrong
I'm just
Overlord.
clarifying for our viewers.
Now
If you want to play-
it's National Slap a Skylar Day.
There's
We're
a-
gonna
Yeah.
be playing
Okay,
Overlord, the
You're right.
third
We'll be playing the
person hack
2007 game Overlord, where you
The
have minions.
1994
No, Skylar.
Flight Simulator
Skylar.
by Roman Software that was released for the Amiga and PS MS-DOS platform.
This was a
my
terrible
God.
idea.
Okay, why did I invite Skylar to this podcast? Okay, so the next game we're going to be playing is 2007's Overlord. Buy it right now on Steam. It's only $5. The whole point of this game is for games to be cheap, or the whole point of this show is for the games to be cheap, so that you guys can play along with us. And we're planning on releasing these shows every 2 weeks. I feel like for a games podcast, that gives us some ample time to play through the game, to get ready for the podcast, and to let other people buy the game and check it out for themselves. So the next show should be 2 weeks from when this comes out. I don't know. I'm gonna have to get the stream
The
up and everything.
18th.
So, well, it's the 18th now. I don't know when it'll go up on iTunes because iTunes is weird with podcasts. Like my first podcast took like 2 weeks to get up on iTunes. But from whenever this posts on iCast on iTunes, we'll be doing it 2 weeks from then. So 2007's Overlord. Buy it on Steam. Check it out. Other than that, we are all done. Thanks for joining us.
Don't get confused with previous versions of Overlord. Those aren't the right games.
Skylar, you're such a dick.